"You're too old to babysit my kids, Mom." "That's what my daughter, Danica, said to me without looking up from her phone, without hesitation, as if she were discussing what to order for lunch. I was standing in her kitchen, wiping my hands on a dish towel, having just folded a basket of baby clothes and made grilled cheese for her 2 children. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. My throat tightened, as though someone had looped a string around it and pulled hard. I stared at her, my daughter, the same little girl I once rocked to sleep during thunderstorms, the one who begged me not to leave her at daycare, the one I supported through a messy divorce and college tuition. Now she wouldn't even look me in the eye. "It's nothing personal," she added with a shrug. "You've been great. But Liam and I feel like it's time for a shift, you know." A shift. As if the role I had filled so quietly and completely for the past 3 years could simply be outsourced. I nodded. I smiled. That smile, the polite, practiced one, had become my shield over the years. The one that said, "Of course I understand," even when I didn't, even when something inside me cracked. I turned and walked slowly back to my guest room. Not our home, their house. And in that quiet return to my space, something in me changed. Not a scream. Not a sob. Just a shift, like a door quietly closed in a part of my soul I didn't realize had been left open. Later that night, as I lay awake staring at the soft glow of the baby monitor on my nightstand, I realized something. I wasn't wanted anymore. I had become an old piece of furniture, familiar, functional, but ultimately replaceable. And that sentence, delivered so casually by my own child, was the beginning. The first crack before everything fell apart. The moment that would eventually lead me to a place I never could have imagined. After my husband, Alan, passed away from a heart attack 3 years ago, I sold our family home. It was too big, too quiet, too filled with echoes of a life that no longer existed. Danica offered me the guest suite in her new house. She said she wanted the kids to grow up around their grandmother. "It just makes sense, Mom," she said one evening, while flipping through floor plans. "Besides, you'll be helping us out so much with childcare." And it did make sense at the time. Mornings were my favorite. I'd wake up early, tiptoe into the kitchen before anyone else stirred, and brew my vanilla bean coffee. I'd pack Ella's lunch, fold Noah's tiny socks, and warm up oatmeal just the way he liked it, with cinnamon and blueberries. It brought me a sense of peace I hadn't felt since Alan died. I felt needed again, anchored. Noah would come padding into the kitchen in his superhero pajamas, dragging his blanket behind him like a cape. "Grandma," he'd whisper, "can we make pancake faces?" I always said yes. Sometimes Danica would come home late from work and find me reading to the kids. She'd lean against the doorframe, smiling. "You're a lifesaver, Mom. Honestly, I don't know how I'd manage without you." And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I poured everything I had into helping her, into making that house feel like home for all of us. Backyard barbecues, movie nights with pillow forts, planting little herb gardens with Ella, who kept pulling out the basil thinking it was a weed. I was part of all of it. We were a family, or so I thought. Even as Danica grew more distant, I told myself it was just the stress, work deadlines, the kids, life. I didn't mind skipping my monthly book club to help her prep for open houses or staying up when Ella had a fever. That's what mothers do. That's what love looks like. I used to lie awake some nights thinking about Alan. I hoped he'd be proud of how I was holding everything together, staying close to our daughter and her growing family. I liked to imagine him smiling down on us during those weekend barbecues or Sunday brunches, or while I read bedtime stories. One evening, I even wrote in my journal, "Life isn't perfect, but it feels like home again. I think I'm finally healing." But looking back now, I see I mistook usefulness for love, routine for respect. I thought being needed meant being valued. The truth was I had built a life on sand, not stone, and the tide was already starting to turn. It was a Wednesday afternoon in late autumn, when I first heard it, the word that would stay lodged in my mind like a splinter. "Capel?" Ella had a runny nose, so I kept her home from preschool. We curled up on the couch with her favorite fleece blanket, reading The Very Busy Spider for what felt like the 100th time. Her tiny fingers followed mine across the page, and when she rested her head on my shoulder, I felt that quiet joy only a grandmother can understand. "You read better than anyone," she whispered, her voice soft and congested. That moment was everything to me. It made the sacrifices feel worthwhile. The skipped book clubs, the nights spent reheating leftovers, the tired feet and quiet prayers. Then Danica walked in. Her heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. She glanced at us briefly, her daughter curled into my side, the book open on my lap, before frowning. "Why is she napping this late?" she asked, exasperated. "Her whole sleep schedule is going to be messed up again." "She's not napping," I said gently. "We're just reading. She's feeling under the weather, so I thought a quiet afternoon." "That's not the point," Danica cut in, waving a dismissive hand. "You keep forgetting how we're trying to regulate her nap routine. You can't just do what you used to do with me. It's different now." She sighed loudly, like explaining this was a burden. Then she turned and walked into the kitchen without waiting for a reply. I sat there stunned, not because she corrected me parenting styles change, but because of how she did it. Flat, cold, indifferent. Like I was a relic of a bygone era, a well-meaning but increasingly inconvenient house guest. That evening, while folding laundry in the hallway, I overheard her talking to Liam in the kitchen. She didn't know I was nearby. "She means well," Danica said. "But honestly, she's kind of slipping. She let Ella nap at 4 o'clock. Again, I just don't think she's as capable as she used to be." Capable? That was the word. Not loving, not helpful, not present, just capable? As if my value could be boiled down to function. Liam didn't disagree. He just gave a low hum of acknowledgement. I stood there, my hands frozen in a half-folded towel, and for the first time, I asked myself a question I had never dared to ask. Am I a burden? From that moment on, I began noticing things I had been too blind or too hopeful to see before. The missed thank yous, the absence of eye contact, the way Danica began giving me instructions instead of including me in decisions. And every now and then, a new version of the same word would slip through her lips. Polished, casual, cutting. Capable. That was the moment I stopped feeling like family and started feeling like furniture. After that afternoon, everything changed, but not with an explosion. No confrontation. No dramatic fallout. Just silence. A silence that arrived not all at once, but in tiny fragments. A missed good morning. A forgotten thank you. A look that lasted half a second too long without warmth. The first cut came when I noticed the calendar had been replaced. For years, I'd been the one who kept track of Noah's soccer practices, Ella's art days, school holidays, and dentist appointments. Danica used to forward me her work schedule, and I'd build my days around it, ensuring the kids were fed, dressed, and gently ushered through each day, with as much love as I could give. But one morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw the old corkboard gone. In its place was a sleek digital tablet, color-coded, locked and mounted high on the wall. I asked, "Would you mind showing me how to use it so I can stay in sync?" Danica didn't look up from her laptop. "It's okay, Mom. We've got it now." We've got it now. It stung more than I expected. Then came the nanny. A young woman named Risa, energetic, charming, good with the kids. I didn't know she'd been hired until I walked into the living room one morning and found her building block towers with Ella. Danica came down the stairs, dressed for work. "Oh, I forgot to tell you," she said breezily. "This is Risa. She's here to help out." "Help with what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Pickups, drop-offs, a few afternoons a week. Figured it might give you a break." A break I never asked for. One I didn't want. Still, I offered to show Risa Ella's bedtime routine, but Danica waved me off. "She's a professional, Mom. Let her figure it out." That one hurt. After that, my days grew quiet. No more morning pancakes, no more school pickups or story time. I was still under their roof, but no longer part of the rhythm. And slowly, the house that once held so much warmth began to feel colder, like I was haunting it, a shadow of a person who had once mattered. It wasn't cruelty. It was erasure. Polite, incremental, unmistakable. It was a Saturday afternoon in early spring when the final push came. Danica was hosting one of her backyard barbecues, a networking brunch, she called it. Her friends arrived in line in dresses and sleek sunglasses, balancing wine glasses while their children tore through the yard, with sticky fingers and grass-stained knees. I stood in the kitchen, slicing strawberries and arranging crackers on a tray, as I'd always done for her gatherings. Preparing snacks was second nature to me, quietly making sure things ran smoothly behind the scenes. Danica appeared in the doorway, her voice light but firm. "You don't need to do that, Mom. Risa's handling the food." "I don't mind," I replied gently. "I know how picky Noah can be." "She's got it," Danica said again, sharper this time. So I stepped aside. I sat alone on the patio while Risa, the nanny, passed out juice boxes and veggie trays to guests, who barely acknowledged me. No one asked me to join a conversation. No one glanced my way. Even Noah, sweet Noah, looked confused that morning when I didn't take him to the park. "Why aren't you coming, Grandma?" I didn't have a good answer. Just a change in plans, sweetheart. That evening, I set the table for 4, as I always had. I had just placed the napkins when Danica breezed in, grabbing her keys. "Oh, we're eating out. Risa's coming too. You don't have to wait up." I stood there, holding a plate in my hands, watching the door close behind her. And that was it. Not a fight, not an argument, just nothing. A slow fade into the background, 1,000 tiny dismissals masked as decisions. I still folded laundry. I still organized the pantry. I still restocked the soap. But no one noticed. No one thanked me. I wasn't a grandmother anymore. I was a ghost with good timing. And for the first time, I began to understand I wasn't staying because I was wanted. I was staying because I didn't know where else to go. Until that moment. I moved out without ceremony. There were no hugs, no packed lunches for the road, no goodbye from Danica, just a text, "Thanks again for everything. Hope you settle in okay. I'll call you soon." She never did. The apartment I found was a modest 1-bedroom above a laundromat. The stairs creaked. The walls were thin. The air smelled faintly of detergent and warm metal. It wasn't home. It was functional, quiet. Too quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed that first night, still in my coat, surrounded by boxes I had no motivation to open. I didn't cry. I didn't unpack. I just sat there, staring at chipped paint, and trying to remember how I had ended up so alone. I missed the chaos, the noise, even the sharp edge in Danica's voice. I missed the weight of Ella on my chest during nap time, the tug of Noah's small hand in mine on the way to school. I missed the version of myself who still felt needed. I tried to keep a routine. That's what the book said. Keep structure, maintain a schedule. So I got up at 6, brewed a small pot of coffee, took slow walks down the block, browsed the grocery store even when I didn't need anything. I stood in aisles, reading labels just to fill time, watching couples laugh about dinner plans. No one noticed me. No one smiled. Once, a man reached past me for a can of soup and didn't even say excuse me. It was as if I had become translucent, present but unseen. At night, I opened a box labeled photos. Inside were fragments of my former life, my wedding day, Danica's 5th birthday, a blurry shot of me at a lake in a bathing suit, tan, laughing, full of something I couldn't name anymore. I stared at that woman for a long time. Where had she gone? I hadn't just lost my place in Danica's house. I had lost my identity. And I didn't know how to get it back. It was a Thursday afternoon when I found it. The sky outside was gray. My heater clicked every few minutes, struggling to keep the room warm. I decided to reorganize the last few boxes, anything to keep my mind from drifting into places that hurt. There was one box tucked in the back of the closet, smaller than the others, labeled in faded marker, Alan. I hadn't opened it since I moved. Inside were old anniversary cards, dried flowers from our 30th wedding dinner, and a few Polaroids from our final trip to Montana just weeks before his heart gave out without warning. I traced the edges of his handwriting, smelled the faint scent of time in the paper. And then I saw it. A sealed envelope, thick with old receipts, folded notes, and one line scrawled in my handwriting across the front. Do not throw away. Check later. I opened it carefully, the paper fragile with age. Out fell a lottery ticket, crumpled and slightly yellowed. I almost laughed. Alan used to buy lottery tickets on the 1st of every month, like clockwork. It was never about winning, just a ritual, a joke, a slice of dream. Just imagine, he'd say, waving the ticket like it was golden, "We win big, and I'll buy you that little villa in Tuscany. And I'll settle for a dishwasher that doesn't leak," I used to reply. After his funeral, I must have found that ticket in the glove box and slipped it into the envelope. Then I forgot about it entirely. But now I had time, and for the first time in weeks, I needed a distraction from the ache in my chest. I pulled out my phone and Googled the Powerball numbers for February 4th, the year printed on the ticket. It was old but not too old. And as the screen loaded, I read the numbers out loud. 26, 37, 41, 55, 63. Powerball 18. I stared, then looked at the ticket. Every number matched. I blinked, reread them 10 times, convinced it was a mistake, wrong year, wrong draw, some cruel coincidence. But it wasn't. It was real. A $3.7 million winning ticket, unclaimed, expiring in just under 3 weeks. My breath caught. My hands trembled. It was as if the universe had whispered, "You are not finished, Margot." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I didn't tell anyone. Not Danica. Not my sister in Oregon. Not even Joyce, the kind neighbor who offered to bring soup once a week. This wasn't something to announce. It wasn't even about the money, not really. It was about something deeper. Something I hadn't felt in years. Agency. I called the lottery office. The woman on the line sounded tired, but polite. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "If you're the ticket holder, you'll need to bring it in person. Valid ID, of course. It's still valid for another 19 days. I thanked her. Then I sat down on the edge of my bed and cried. But this time, it wasn't the helpless kind of crying. It wasn't grief or humiliation. It was something else. Relief, awe, a quiet exhale of power I hadn't tasted in years. I booked a bus ticket to the city. I made copies of the lottery ticket, sealed it in a plastic sleeve, and double-checked the folder every hour like it might vanish if I looked away. At the lottery office, the process was both underwhelming and surreal. Forms, ID checks, a security guard offering me lukewarm water while they ran the numbers. "You can take it in annual payments or a lump sum," the man said behind the desk. "Lump sum," I replied, without hesitation. When it was done, I walked outside into the cool spring air. Cars still honked. Pigeons still wandered the sidewalks. Nothing around me had changed. But inside me, everything had. I no longer felt invisible. And I no longer owed anyone an explanation. Especially not the daughter who once told me I was too old to help. Danica thought she had pushed me out of her life. But what she really did without meaning to was push me back into my own. The day after the funds cleared, I opened a new bank account at a quiet branch across town. No shared names, no connections, just mine. Then I met with a financial advisor, Celeste. She was my age, kind, and spoke to me like I had value, not like I needed help. Together we created a private trust, structured, secure, and silent. I rewrote my will. This time, Danica's name was nowhere in it. Instead, I left everything to Noah and Ella with a clause. The trust would only be released when they turned 25, provided they completed their education, proved financial independence, and performed a verified act of kindness for a stranger. I smiled when I signed that final line. If I was going to leave a legacy, I wanted it to be more than a number. I wanted it to mean something. Then I made a different call to a travel agent. I didn't want flash. I wanted peace. 3 weeks later, I landed in Florence, Italy. I had found a modest one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a stone building wrapped in ivy. It overlooked a cobbled street where the scent of roasted coffee and fresh bread floated through the air every morning. I walked everywhere. I painted with strangers who spoke in slow Italian and warm gestures. I sat in piazzas with the sketchpad in my lap and watched life unfold not around me, but with me. And I didn't tell Danica. Not where I went. Not that I'd left the country. Not even that I was safe. She didn't ask. For weeks, my phone stayed quiet, and I realized something strange. I didn't miss her voice. I didn't miss the sharp tones or the clipped directions. What I missed truly, deeply were the children, the little ones who had once called me their whole world. So I began writing letters, not to Danica, to them. Letters filled with stories, memories, and love. Letters they wouldn't read until they were old enough to understand. Because I wasn't running away. I was building a future where I would never again beg to be seen. The first message came as I was sipping espresso on my terrace one morning. The sun had just begun to slip behind the terracotta rooftops. It was from Danica. 3 words. "You doing okay?" I didn't answer. The next day, a voicemail. "Hey, just checking in. The kids miss you. Maybe we could FaceTime." I let it go to voicemail. Again. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't punishing her. I was simply unavailable. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for her to want me. Days passed, then another message. I called a lawyer. "You can't just disappear, Mom. We need to talk about your estate." And there it was. Not "Are you okay?" Not "I miss you." Just estate. That night, I called Mr. Sanford, my attorney back in Boston. "I'd like to schedule a meeting with Danica," I said. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You don't have to." "I want to," I replied, "but only on my terms. Quiet, clear, no drama." I flew back the following week. No announcement, no welcome, just me in a black carry-on. Danica walked into the law office 10 minutes late. Tight smile, designer bag clutched like a shield. "Mom," she said breathlessly, "what is going on?" I didn't stand. I didn't flinch. "You told me to find my own space," I said calmly. "You said I was too old to help. You asked me to leave, so I did." She blinked, stunned. Mr. Sanford cleared his throat and slid a folder across the table. "This is the updated structure of the estate." She scanned it, her voice cracked. "You're leaving everything to the kids, and nothing to me." "No," I said softly, "nothing to you. You're my mother." "And you were my daughter," I said gently, "but you chose otherwise." Danica didn't cry, not right away. Her face went rigid, like porcelain under strain. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "I know," I replied. "That's what makes it worse." I stood up slowly, smoothing the front of my blouse. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. "I'm not angry, Danica. I'm just done." Mr. Sanford handed her the finalized documents. She didn't touch them. As I walked to the door, she whispered behind me, "So that's it?" I paused, my hand on the frame. That's it. No door slammed, no voices rose. Just quiet, deliberate closure. Weeks passed. I returned to Florence, to quiet mornings, art classes, and evenings sketching the Duomo from my terrace. Then the final insult came. Mr. Sanford emailed me. Subject line, urgent, attempted trust access. Danica had tried to challenge the trust, claiming I wasn't mentally sound, that I'd been under duress, that maybe I was suffering from early cognitive decline. It was the last thread she had. If she couldn't reach me emotionally, she'd try to erase me legally. But what she didn't know was that I had already prepared for this. Celeste, my advisor, had video documentation of our meetings. Clear, articulate explanations of every decision I'd made. I had also completed a full psychological evaluation weeks earlier, clean, court-recognized, and notarized. We submitted everything. The bank replied firmly, the trust stands. Further attempts to alter it would be considered fraud. Danica never responded. But her lawyer did accidentally CC Mr. Sanford on an internal note. Client is stunned. Expected to intimidate. Did not anticipate such thorough preparation. I read the line twice, then smiled. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't fought. I had simply been ready. And that, more than anything, was the victory. It was a Tuesday morning when the first letter arrived. A cream envelope slid under my door, marked from America. No return address. Just my name, written in a child's unknown handwriting. Inside was a crayon drawing a red house, a yellow sun, and 3 stick figures. One tall, one medium, and one with long silver hair. Above it, in big blue letters, "We miss you, Grandma," signed Noah and Ella. My heart clenched. On the back was a note, written in Danica's familiar, careful script. "I didn't tell them why you left. I just said you were on a big adventure. They ask about you every week. I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear from us, but the kids insisted." I read it once, then again. There was no apology. Just a quiet offering. That evening I sat at my small writing desk overlooking the piazza and pulled out 2 letters I had written months ago, ones I had tucked away for a time when they'd be ready to understand. Then I wrote a new one. "Dear Noah and Ella, I got your drawing today. I especially loved the silver hair, very accurate. Tell Ella I still remember her story about the rabbit with yellow boots. One day, I'll read her the Italian version. Be good, be kind, and always know that your grandma loves you more than all the stars. Love. Of Grandma Margot." I enclosed 2 pressed flower petals from the garden outside my building. And for the first time in months, I mailed something with hope in my chest. Not regret. Just love. A week later, another letter came. This one was from Danica. Mom, I read your note to the kids. Thank you. I know I've made mistakes, a lot of them. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you might let me try again, even if it's just as a visitor in your life. Not as your daughter asking for anything, just as a woman who finally sees her mother for who she really is. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't move me, but because I no longer needed her words to validate mine. Still, her tone had shifted, no longer polished, no longer entitled. Just human. A week later, I sent a single line in reply. Danica, you may come as my guest. Bring only kindness. Leave expectations behind. Marga. I didn't open the door wide, but I left it unlocked, not for reconciliation but for respect. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops of Florence, I sat alone at my favorite cafe, espresso in hand, sketchpad open. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hoping. I was simply here, living. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need to be chosen, because I had already chosen myself.